So,
Hi, everyone.
hello everyone, welcome. Let's see, we have about 7 people in the call. We're waiting for some more. So we're going to give it a few more minutes. Let's see. Zoe, can you just confirm that you can still see my screen all good?
I can. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, welcome. See more and more people joining.
I'll probably give it a couple minutes and then we'll get started.
Let's maybe give it until 12:31, 12:32, just making sure that people can join. We can have more people joining in later. That's also fine. So if anyone wants to quickly grab a cup of tea, coffee, whatever you want, that is your chance.
Okay. Shall we get started, Celine?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's go.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and welcome to AI Unlocked. It's uncovered, not unlocked, can't read. It is Project Womexen's first webinar. We thought because AI is such a hot topic right now, we thought this would be the best conversation to start off the new initiative within Projecting Success. And we're going to try and talk about everything AI or cover as much as we can within an hour. So here's just an overview. So introductions now, and then we're going to have a micro teach by Celine. Then we're going to have some discussion points that we would love for all of you to get involved in. And we're going to leave space at the end for questions. But as we go through it, please just drop your questions in the chat and we'll try and answer as many as possible. So about us. So we both work with Projecting Success, and there's many different parts to Projecting Success, but we have our consultancy, which is where we work with different organizations and we just help them develop some strategies, implementation plans. We have our community, which is where we have meetups in person and online webinars like this, which is all available on our LinkedIn pages. And we also offer apprenticeship, so level 3, level 4, and level 7. But all these areas just have a focus on data-driven project delivery. And Project Womexen just came from a place of wanting to just create a supportive community for women and everyone to develop skills, drive change, and advance in their careers. But we haven't actually introduced who we are. So I am Zoe, a data analyst tutor at Projecting Success. I actually don't have a technical background. I did sociology and criminology at university. Then I taught myself how to code, found it very interesting, and kind of just stayed in this space for a while now. But yeah, that's me. Over to Celine.
Thank you so much. So hi everyone, my name is Celine and I am also a data analyst tutor at Projecting Success. I also originally don't have a technical background. I actually started off as a linguist and translator, and then I actually went down the road of computational linguistic, which, I quickly ended up doing AI and machine learning. It's quite a hot topic at the moment, all these chatbots, how we can use AI to teach our computers to speak and understand language. So that is sort of my background and specialty. And we also have, not on the slide, but in the call, we have Erin today as well, who is facilitating the meeting. Erin, do you want to say hi?
Everyone, I'm on the marketing team at Projecting Success, so I get to learn a lot of interesting things that the team are doing. And yeah, thank you so much for joining today.
Brilliant. So, without further ado, if we're all ready, we can start with our first part, which will be a micro teach on what is AI. So, the reason why we decided to start this webinar with a bit of a micro teach is based on the assumption that if we want to make AI accessible to everyone, then we need to educate everyone. We need to make AI accessible. So education is essential. We think that everyone should have some sort of basic knowledge about what is AI. So that's why we're going to start with today. So I would like to start with a Slido poll. So if you haven't used this before, it is essentially a way to, get the audience to participate in the session as well. So you can either scan the QR code with your mobile devices, or you can also just join at slido.com and type the code that you see at the bottom left. And then you can tell us about your background in AI. So do you have any background in AI? If so, maybe you have, extensive knowledge, you've studied AI data science before, or maybe you have a relatively intermediate level, you've done some programming, maybe you have already, tuned the machine learning model before, or maybe you just know the basics, which is absolutely fine as well, or you don't have a background in AI at all. All of these are fine. It's just for us to have an idea. Okay, so we have about 71% of the people saying they know the basics. We have had 8 people answering so far. I'm gonna give it some more time. Let's see, yeah, we have 21 people in the call now, so I'm gonna wait a little bit more. Again, still around 70% of people knowing the basics. But we do have some, data scientists in the call as well. If you have studied AI data science, or if you have, extensive work experience in this area. A couple of people who, describe themselves as having some sort of intermediate knowledge of AI. And interestingly, no one so far has no background in AI, which I think, tells a lot about the fact that everyone sort of, knows about it. Everyone tries to, understand what it is because it's so important in today's society. So 12 answers so far. Let's give it a few more minutes. And I also want to point at the fact that these Slido polls, you're going to see quite a lot of them throughout this presentation because we want to hear from you, but they're entirely anonymous. So feel free to answer, whatever you want. No one will be able to see what you personally answered. Okay, so it seems like we are really sort of plateauing around 70% of the people with a, basic knowledge of AI, which is good because it means that today you're probably going to learn new things, but you also already have sort of a basic understanding, so you will be able to develop your reflection even further. So I would like to start this micro teach by trying to define what is AI. The thing is that artificial intelligence is extremely hard to define because it's such a broad field, and also it refers to the notion of, well, intelligence, which is in itself a very complex concept. So what I did is I went to different places on the web, different dictionaries, for example, and started collecting multiple definitions that we can, read together and compare. So we have, for example, on IBM, AI is a technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem-solving, decision-making, creativity, and autonomy. So here you can see that we have quite a long list of tasks or of things that, intelligence or intelligent, agents can do. So we have quite a sort of tasked task-based definition. If we look at the Britannica Encyclopedia, we can see that AI is the ability of a computer or computer-controlled robot. Quite interesting that here they're referring to sort of the physical manifestation of AI, which is like robot and robotics, to perform tasks that are commonly associated with the intellectual processes characteristic of humans, such as the ability to reason. So I find this definition interesting because it refers to intellectual processes. So to define intelligence, it refers back to intelligence, which is sort of, we're going in circle a little bit, and you really see how hard it is actually to define such a term like artificial intelligence. If we look at the Cambridge Dictionary, we have the use or study of computer systems or machines that have some of the qualities that the human brain has, such as the ability to interpret and produce language in a way that seems human, recognize or create images, solve problems, and learn from data supplied to them. So I want to point at this part of the definition, learn from data. That is something that is key in AI. Our AI actually learn by looking into data points and deciphering patterns. We will come back to this in a second, but before that, just wanted to show you one last definition: the capability of computer systems or algorithms to imitate intelligent human behavior. Here we can see we're sort of always going back to, intelligence without really being able to define precisely what it is. So if we sort of take all of these definitions together and try to have something that is, roughly in the middle, we could say that AI is a technology that allows computers to perform tasks that require intelligence by learning patterns from data. So I added the word pattern specifically. So the reason why I decided to summarize this definition is this way: we are referring back to tasks that require intelligence rather than intelligence itself, because intelligence itself, we could, talk about it for the next 8 hours and spend the whole day in this call talking about it, which would be really fun, but obviously we can't do this. So let's take a task-based definition. Let's say that we consider that something is, artificially intelligent if it can perform some of the tasks that we all agree requires intelligence. For example, recognizing faces, that requires some form of intelligence. Driving a car, distinguishing different animals. It sounds silly and simple, but the fact that you can distinguish a dog from a cat is because you possess, brain, a certain form of intelligence. Understand language, of course, but also paint, write, be creative. So all of these tasks require some form of intelligence. And what the AI is trying to do is to perform this task as well as we humans do, or even sometimes better. So we're going to really take a task-based approach. Now, some more vocabulary just to sort of demystify AI and understand, the different field and subfield in AI. So AI is part of the field of data science. Data science is extremely broad, so there are plenty of other things, but AI is one of them. AI is, again, very broad. So machine learning is actually a subset of AI that uses specifically algorithms. And deep learning, I'm sure you've heard this already before, deep learning is a subset of machine learning which uses specifically neural networks. So when we talk about AI, when we talk about machine learning, deep learning, we're actually, talking about the same sort of whole. So that is for some more precise vocabulary. Now, we said before that AI should be capable of, doing tasks that require intelligence, and that they do so by learning from data. So what does it really mean to learn from data? So we're going to take a case scenario, which is very popular in the field of data science, and it's called sentiment analysis. So analyzing whether a given text expresses a positive or negative sentiment. So that is something that us humans do very easily, right? If we see a review, for example, on Google for a restaurant, we read the text, us humans, and we can very easily know if it's positive or negative, right? We look at the words and we can figure this out. So it does require some form of intelligence. So it's an example of one of these tasks. How would an AI go about it? How can we, create an AI that can read a text, understand it, and then tell us if it's positive or negative. So there are different steps to this. The first one would be collecting large amounts of data. So collecting, in this case, a lot of restaurant reviews. You can see a review of the Enchanted Plate, Let It Brie. These are completely made up. They sounded a bit funny. ChatGPT helped with these. So you can see that the AI can be funny as well. So you will collect lots of data. Here, because it's an educational purposes, I use ChatGPT to help me, but you can actually find lots of data pretty much everywhere on the internet. And you also need to have them annotated as to whether they're positive or negative. So you would have people reviewing all of these texts and annotating them. This one is positive, this one is negative, and such. So we need to collect large amounts of annotated data. What we will do then is take all of our annotated data and feed that into our machine learning algorithm. And what the algorithm will do is look into the data and start finding patterns. For example, it could find out that words like delicious or housemaid or expressions like hugged my soul are most often associated with positive reviews. On the other hand, words like soggy, chewy, major letdown are more often associated with negative reviews. So your machine learning algorithm will start finding all of these patterns by looking into dozens, if not hundreds, or even thousands, possibly, of text. So it will learn all of these patterns, and then what you're going to do is take a new text, a text that your AI has never seen before, and feed it into your trained machine learning algorithm. So the machine learning algorithm is now ready to be tested. It has learned all of the patterns, and using the pattern it has learned, it will essentially give you a prediction for that text. And then you can compare the prediction that the machine learning made to the truth. So let's say that our machine learning algorithm for our new text, the Grill and Thrill, says that it is a positive review. If it is indeed positive, that is +1 accuracy point. Our model is performing well for that text. But to have a good idea of how well our model actually performs, we need to test that on many more texts. Maybe the next one is, predicted as being negative. Turns out it is positive. So this time our model didn't perform that well. And we'll continue to do that for, again, dozens of texts, as many as possible, to test our model and see how well it performs. Depending on the results, you can either deploy it, so use it commercially, for example, or you can just keep on improving it. So that is, in a nutshell, a high-level overview of how machine learning, or AI, works. Now, the next question that I would like you to think about is, how did such learning system come to exist, right? Because today we want you to have, a really brief but a really comprehensive overview of AI. So we're also going to talk about the history of it. Very briefly, when we think about AI, we often have these, fancy images of like robots in mind, and how new and how modern it is. But actually, it isn't that modern at all. So the first deep learning systems, so the first models of neural networks, which are basically very, very fancy machine learning algorithms, were actually created in the 40s by McCulloch and Pitts. And one of the dominant ideas back in the 40s, but also in the 50s and 60s, is that computers can only do what they are told to do. Everything that the computer does has to be programmed, right? The computer cannot have a behavior that we didn't expect or that we didn't specifically advise it to do. This idea was proven gobsmackingly wrong in 1952 by Arthur Samuel, who actually created an AI who was capable of playing checkers better than him. So logically, computers can do things, beyond what we just programmed them to do, because here you could play better than its own creator. So that was one of the major breakthroughs in AI. There were plenty of others with plenty of different games other than checkers, but 1952 already, AI is really starting to perform surprisingly well. Now, there has been, in the following decades, 1670s, some AI winters, as we call them. So these are periods during which the interest in AI sort of diminished. People thought that we had done everything we could do and that it would never get better than this. So the interest, was a little bit lower. But this actually changed. In the 1980s, you could see the first commercially successful systems, which were mostly used in sales and targeting customer preferences. So we actually start realizing that, AI can do things that, actually bring money, bring a return on investment. So in the 1990s and 2000s, we started understanding that if we want to build more of these commercially successful models, we need to have data, because models, they learn from data, as we have seen with our restaurant reviews. So the 1990s and the 2000s really see the emergence of big data, essentially collecting as much data as possible and having like millions, if not billions of data points. And I would like to sort of end our very brief review of AI history in 2018 with the invention of large language models. So models like ChatGPT. ChatGPT came later, but it's around 2018 that we started being capable of creating these. And that is also thanks to big data. These language models are a direct consequence of having so much data, because in order to be able to write down in a certain language, these models require massive amounts of data, so they can decipher all the complex patterns of the language and then being able to reproduce it themselves. So I would argue that language models are probably one of the biggest AI outcomes of this century so far. Who knows what is going to come next? So that is where we're going to stop our quick review of AI history. Now, AI has obviously boomed in the last decade. And it is now used pretty much everywhere. So I'm going to give a couple of examples. You're going to see my slides are going to be full of different domains. Healthcare, for example, we do have AI systems that essentially assist doctors in checking whether there is a tumor on an MRI scan. So that is one of the applications of AI in healthcare. Art, AI can do art, again, with all of the warning signs that this implies ethically. There was an AI that actually won an art competition in the United States a few years ago, which created a massive controversy, but AI is capable of creating images. Environment, we are seeing quite a lot of startups flourishing at the moment with ideas on how to use AI to tackle climate change, for example, and different environmental issues. Retail, that is something that's sometimes unexpected, but when you go to your grocery shopping, you are actually interacting with an AI without even necessarily realizing it. So if you go to the sort of automatic checking of your items at the end, you will be watched by a camera that double checks if you're trying to steal anything, and they do that thanks to AI systems. We might talk about that in a bit more details later when we talk about everyday applications of AI, but also finance. AI systems are used to differentiate between a normal transaction and a potential fraudulent transaction. So AI systems are trained to recognize these potential fraudulent transactions. Manufacture, AI can help us predict which machines, for example, are likely to break, which machines are likely to have a failure. Education as well, that is something we will cover later on, so I won't talk about it too much, but education can essentially really be empowered thanks to AI. Security as well, music as well. I don't know if you have heard the latest song from the Beatles, but they actually used AI to create it. So the one that came out just a few years ago, funnily enough, which is called Now and Then. So what they did is they had this very old recording of John Lennon playing the piano and singing this song. but the quality of the piano wasn't good enough to use the recording. But thanks to AI, they could actually separate the two sound waves. They could separate John Lennon's voice from the piano. So they just took John Lennon's voice to actually, make a song that was commercially viable and re-record it. So that was quite an interesting use of AI in music. Agriculture as well. I actually met someone yesterday who works in animal welfare and who was telling me how farmers use AI to recognize one pig from a different one, because when you have hundreds of them, it can get very tricky. So funnily enough, AI is used also in agriculture. Law, of course, as well. There are some AI systems that try to predict whether an offender, someone that has committed a crime before, is likely to re-offend or not. Obviously, with all the warning sign and possible ethical considerations we should have, but that is an application of AI. And of course, traveling. We know that we have AI systems that targets what are your preferences and essentially suggest a certain destination or advertisements for you. So these are some of the applications of AI. But all of this is great, but it can also cause a lot of issues. The environmental impact of AI is massive. We tend to forget about it, but we need, precious minerals that we need to go and dig into the ground to find. It creates a power imbalance. So the ones who have the technology have more power than the ones who don't. We can discuss for hours whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. But for example, AI is used in wars. So there are research that suggests that, for example, the reason why Ukraine could resist so well against Russia is because Ukraine leveraged some AI technologies that Russia do not have, which is quite, obviously interesting. Laws and copyright, of course, when we have a new AI system coming out, we don't have any laws about it just yet. And yet we do need laws to, put up some rules on this AI system, potentially some restrictions on them. But technology goes faster than law. So sometimes it is too late, or at least there has been some sort of problem or some sort of controversy with this AI system. But the one that I want to talk about in a little bit more detail, just a few minutes, is biases. So biases is one of the potential ethical problems of AI. I think that the best way to define bias is by actually just giving an example. For example, a gender bias. Most LLMs, large language models like ChatGPT, are often biased. It's getting better, but still. If you think about the following sentence, the pilot smiled at the flight attendant. She was so proud of him. Who does she and him refer to? You can actually try it yourself. If you give this sentence to ChatGPT or any other language model and you ask it, please continue the story, the answer that you're likely to have is the pilot was the man and the flight attendant was the woman, even though technically, purely syntactically, there's no reason to think it is in this way rather than the other. That is because the language models are biased. Which obviously, we're trying to have a society that is more inclusive. We're trying to get rid of any form of sexism and such. So it's not quite going in the right direction. So this is an example of bias, but there's some that can be even more harmful than just this pilot and flight attendant in a language model. For example, ethnic discrimination. So if we think about face recognition systems, if you have, a smartphone, which I'm assuming most of you do, you probably have some face recognition system that allows you to unlock your phone, right? So there has been research saying and proving that these face recognition systems perform significantly better on white men than on women, and more specifically on white men than on any other ethnic group. So that causes a lot of issues. Obviously, it is a social issue. It is racial discrimination. It is, just simply not okay. Brand reputation, obviously, from a brand point of view, it's really bad for your reputation if suddenly your AI system starts confusing people who come from a different ethnicity. And a data security issue. So I have a friend who is from like a different ethnic group, and she comes from Brazil, and she can actually unlock her mom's phone. She can unlock her sister's phone because it just keeps confusing their faces, which obviously is a massive issue. You don't want someone else to be able to unlock your phone. So these kind of biases cause all of these issues in society, and it is something that people are starting to be more and more aware of, thankfully, but there's still a long way until we can solve that. So that is for my very brief overall introduction to AI. So if you have any question, please feel free to use the chat, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. And I will give it back to Zoe.
Thank you, Celine, for that high-level introduction into AI. I am now actually intrigued to see, and if we go to the next slide, we have another Slido to find out what are the different examples of AI that you will interact with. I guess I'll start us off. I use virtual assistants quite a bit, so I have a Google Home at home, and it pretty much wakes me up. I ask it to turn on the lights, to turn on my plug, open the blinds. My friends call me lazy, but I just think it's really useful. And again, that's an example of AI that's using natural language processing to understand my commands and my questions. But yeah, ChatGPT, another great one that I utilize daily. Celine, any examples from you?
I was actually going to say ChatGPT. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people that are here today do use ChatGPT as well. I would love to say that I can do everything without ChatGPT, but that would be a lie. I use ChatGPT really as an assistant for a lot of my tasks, maybe helping me summarizing an email, helping me writing emails, helping me, maybe explain a concept that is very complex, help me simplify it so that I can explain it to my learners. So I do use ChatGPT very often. Obviously, I'm also a big fan of learning apps to learn, languages or programming languages on my phone, and these are actually also really like AI powered. So that is also something that I would use almost every day, pretty much. And we can see, yeah, in our Slido that we do have a lot of people talking about language models.
Yeah.
Let's see, with ChatGPT, Copilot, Midjourney, interesting as well. Alexa, yeah, Google Assistant, essentially, AI assistant. I saw some translation as well. Absolutely, maybe language model or just different AIs like DeepL. Very good at translating, which is quite nice because it sort of breaks down the barriers between people. Grammarly, really nice as well. I've used that a bunch of times. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, quite a few. Thank you for sharing, everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I feel like it's great that we all use AI. We know examples of AI, but we want to talk about how we can benefit from AI and how can we contribute it. So in terms of benefiting to AI, I always say, think about the industry that you're in, and there are likely ways that AI can be applied to improve your work. My mum actually is in the care industry, and she is not tech savvy at all. She usually calls me to remember passwords, doesn't utilize a password manager. But I recently introduced her to Microsoft Copilot, which is an AI assistant. That's all some of you write down. And it can write up your meeting notes. It can send out actions. So it will be in your meeting, write up notes, and it's changed her mind. I'll get pictures throughout the day of what Copilot's done for her. So that's another way to benefit from AI. Just think about how it can improve your work, make things faster. But yeah, Celine, how can we contribute to the AI revolution, do you think?
I think that really anyone can contribute regardless of whether you have a very technical background or not. I mean, obviously, if you do have a technical background, there's plenty of jobs available there to field AI, machine learning engineers, AI engineers, all of these. But if you don't have a technical background, there's still always going to be room for, domain knowledge. We do need human expertise in order to build these AI. If I can take the example of, AI in healthcare, we do need people who look at all these MRI scans and help us annotate them for yes, there is a tumor, no, there isn't. Yes, no, we need annotated data. So we need people who are specialized in their fields, maybe healthcare or pretty much anything else, to actually prepare the data that the machine learning algorithm can learn from. Also, when we think about language models, they aren't perfect. None of them are. but it's really complex to understand how good are they actually at, producing language. So we need people with knowledge of linguistics to go on, test the model, and checks, what are the mistakes that ChatGPT always does. So they could say, for example, ChatGPT is extremely good at understanding the meaning of words, very good at spelling, never makes any spelling mistake, but sometimes it makes really strange syntactic errors. So we can really, use people with linguistic knowledge, for example, or any other domain knowledge to study the output of these models and essentially then help the engineers actually improve them. So I think people with knowledge of AI and technical background and people with just, expertise in different areas can really work together. Yeah.
Lovely. And you touched on biases earlier, and I know OpenAI, which is like the creator of ChatGPT, they also allow users to participate in feedback just to ensure that things are correct. There is no biases, that they're user-friendly, that they're effective, because OpenAI is always rolling out new systems just to improve ChatGPT. So if you are definitely interested in AI development, I would probably sign up to give some user feedback.
Absolutely. There are actually also a lot of people working in AI ethics specifically. I think it's called like AI ethicist, which is quite an interesting one, where you would essentially test the model and check out if it has any bias, maybe gender, ethnicity, and such, and essentially then help improve. So yeah, there is room for all kinds of jobs and all kinds of people with all kinds of expertise. But yeah, can I pass it over to you, Zoe, to talk about the Project Women?
Yeah, so benefiting and contributing to tech advancements is basically where Project Womexen came from. And this is basically the initiative dedicated, I mentioned in the start, to women, for everyone, to increase opportunities in the tech space, in the growing fields of AI and data science. And we just want to empower women in tech and just to create a more inclusive space. Because I believe it's going to unlock potential, it's going to drive innovation. So I'll talk about the LinkedIn channel that we have, just going to promote women in tech. But when it comes to women in tech, there are some challenges that women face: unconscious bias in the hiring process. They don't feel like they have enough space, but we want to have steps in place to encourage women in tech and data, whether it is platforms like Project Womexen, where we get to highlight different tools being used, just have a conversation. But yeah, over to Celine about any other steps we can use to support women in tech.
Yeah, the thing is that AI has been and has always been, very male dominated, always. And the consequence of that is that even though, today we see some change, we see that there are more women who wants to get into AI or STEM subjects in general. Because it has been so male dominated, managers and companies in general are not necessarily used to having mixed gender teams, and therefore haven't quite developed techniques just yet to get the most out of these mixed gender teams. So some of the challenges that we can think about are sometimes when you're a woman in tech and you get a position maybe as a software engineer or AI engineer, and sometimes you will be the only one in the team or you will be in a minority. The consequence of that can be either that you feel like you're maybe a little bit more silent, it gets a little bit scarier to like speak up, or the opposite situation. Since you're the only woman, people really are happy that you joined the company because they want to be more inclusive. So they ask for your opinion very often, they ask for your input. Okay, what do you think? Which can also be a little bit overwhelming. So I think that these two situations can sort of arise. Now, in terms of practical steps to support and encourage women in data, I was actually speaking to a tech founder the other day who explained to me some of the steps that he takes to make sure that all the women in the company are feeling welcome and dare to speak up. He just observed the behaviors, thinking about social groups. So he just observed the way his team behave, thinking about, okay, there are some who are women, some who come from this ethnical background. We talk about women, but we want to talk about different minorities as well. And he just observes the behavior, and he noticed that the few women that are in the technical team, they tend to stay more silent than men in calls. So he decided that every time now he would just ask, oh, what do you think? Do you have any comments? Without forcing it, but just to let them the space to speak up. So based on the observation that he made, that they spoke less often, he changed his behavior to make sure that they feel more welcome, which had a very positive effect. One other thing that he put in place was during recruitment. So if they are interviewing candidates for a position, for example, as a software engineer or any other, instead of having, himself guiding the candidates during technical interviews, he would actually bring one of the women from the team to guide the candidates during technical interviews. And he would then just sit and observe whether the candidate was responding well to working together with a woman or not. And in some cases, thankfully very few cases, he would notice that some people listen less when they are, facing a woman or being guided by a woman through the technical interview, which obviously, disqualified the candidate pretty much straight away. So he really put in place these sort of tests to make sure that the team was always inclusive, that, women or other, minorities were feeling good. So I think these are some of the things that we can absolutely do. But we would be happy to also hear about what everyone in the call thinks. What practical steps can individuals or organization take to support and encourage women in tech and data? Any take on this?
I do like that what you mentioned about the founder, that he actually is actively taking steps, not just in hiring women, but actually wanting to hear their voice, which is good. I think it's challenging biases, challenging stereotypes. So it's nice to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always start with just observing, like, just taking a step back and looking. Because also if there are, any initiatives that, you would like, women to take, maybe to be more inclusive and to try to encourage other women to join in, giving them the space to do so by themselves rather than maybe over encouraging. So it always starts with observing. I would say that's something that I really took from him. Yeah. Let's see. Encouraging them to upskill, flexible working if required. Everyone is given equal opportunities. Yeah, I think flexible working is major.
Priority. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that, for example, in the UK, women do have more parental leave than men, which is, we can discuss for hours whether that should or should not be the case. But in other countries, women and men would sometimes have the same length of parental leave. But since it's not the case here, having maybe more often flexible hours would attract more young women who maybe just, had children and had a family. Absolutely. Encouraging them to upskill. Any other takes on this?
I think we have one person typing. Or not? Oh.
One more. We're all waiting for that one person typing. No pressure. To be fair, there would be so many more things also in terms of, individual behavior. Having this sort of thought that at the back of your head that, whether we like it or not, we do have prejudices when, on certain other people, and just being conscious of that whenever you jump in a meeting, being like, okay, I will do my best to be conscious of the bias I might have about certain groups and do whatever I can against it. I think that is also extremely important. Just be aware, basically. Yeah.
Oh, we have a few more people typing.
3 more people typing now.
Encouraging maternity leave and support.
Yeah, absolutely. Match your days leave.
Yeah, I agree with the equal opportunities. Yes, leave.
Absolutely.
Encouraging speak ups. Yeah, I don't think it should be a hidden topic. I do think we need to keep speaking about it, and we need to keep encouraging people, upskilling them, flexible working, everything that's been mentioned. I think are all great practical steps that organizations can take.
Absolutely. It's quite interesting to see, match your days leave, because I believe that this is something that I think it was Spain recently sort of put in place. And I was speaking to a friend of mine who is a girl and who works in tech, and she was actually very against it, because she was like, then just companies will not want to hire women, because if, once or twice a month they, just take a day of leave, it's just not going to be able to find jobs, which is, an interesting,
viewpoint,
counter
Mhm.
argument actually from a woman. So it's like these issues are extremely complex to think about. Incorporate women into tech and data by having schools initiatives for girls. Absolutely. I think it's so important when you're a little girl to have, sort of role models in AI or tech or, these STEM areas.
Yeah, because visibility matters. So if you are women in tech, I would always encourage you to just keep sharing your stories, just to inspire others. But thank you to everyone that shared. I do think we should move on, otherwise we'll stay on this slide for a while.
Apologies, there's some more people typing. We're just, we have about 15 minutes left, so we're gonna swiftly move on. But thank you so much for your participation. Let's see, AI in education accessibility.
Yes, so both Celine and I obviously work within education. We're both data analyst tutors. And I know for me, when I'm planning lessons, of course, ChatGPT is useful. But even when teaching programming or teaching any coding language, to be honest, utilizing ChatGPT or utilizing any AI language has been so helpful, because instead of just sitting and sifting through lines and lines of code to find a bug, you can input that into ChatGPT, Gemini AI, and it will quickly find the issue for you. It's been really useful in terms of learning languages, not even programming languages. I think Celine mentioned that she uses it for other languages as well. I just think it has just made learning definitely more accessible. But yeah, I think it's really good. But Celine, what are you thinking?
Yeah, so in my opinion, AI has made education easier and more accessible just by existing, really. If we think about learning apps, I am a big fan of these learning apps. I already mentioned them a couple of times today, maybe to learn a natural language or learn, a programming language. Let's say that you're trying to learn Spanish and you use, one of these language learning apps that are available on your phone. You can essentially practice anywhere, anytime, and most of the time for free, without, being dependent on another human being. Why? Because all of the sentences that you see when your language app is asking you, okay, this is a sentence in English, please translate it into Spanish so you can practice. All of these are actually AI generated. So the good thing is that the AI can essentially continue to, generate more and more and more sentences. You can essentially have infinite practice, and you can practice wherever you are, and the AI will also correct you if anything is wrong. And most of the time, as I said before, this is free, so it makes education more accessible to different sort of financial background and status, and also you don't have to be dependent on a human teacher anymore, who obviously will have, a certain schedule, a certain price, all of these things. So it has made education just so much easier and more accessible to everyone, really. With all, obviously the caveats of the AI can sometimes also be wrong, just like, a real person would be. So yeah, this is some of my take on this. Let's see. What do we have next? Future of AI.
The future of AI. So what's coming, what's exciting, and whether it's going to affect the workplace. So some emerging trends or some cool things that I really like about AI, if we go to the next slide, is the ChatGPT, Search GPT that's coming out. I think it's already out, but essentially, because ChatGPT has only been learned on data from 2023 and backwards, OpenAI have now introduced this new function where you can ask it to put in relevant sources that might have come out yesterday or 2 weeks before, which I think is quite a cool addition to this conversational capabilities from AI models that isn't actually seen within Gemini AI or Copilot yet. So OpenAI is starting that off, which I think is really cool. There's also Galileo AI, not Gemini AI, which is useful for UX and UI designers. So this, again, is another assistant tool, which is for creating user interfaces. So if you want to design a website or an app, you just need to type in a prompt instead of actually creating it yourself. You type in a prompt of what you want to see. If you want to create an app for doggy daycare, a tutor website, whatever you want, you type in and it will create the design for you, which I think is pretty amazing. So you don't need to be a designer. You don't need to know any code. It will create the wireframes for you. And then you can hand that over to your software engineers or other teams to design it for you. So I think that's just amazing. I think it's just making design accessible for everyone if you do have a limited design experience. But yeah, 2 things I think are really exciting that are coming and are already out.
I think that on my side, I mean, obviously anything language model I found very exciting, but that's because I'm language nerdy. Another area that I personally find very exciting when it comes to the future of AI is, of course, healthcare. So, we have discovered plenty of things thanks to AI, and we have also seen that, for example, the AI now performs actually better than certain humans on detecting tumors on MRI scans. We have also discovered thanks to AI systems that are sometimes not even that advanced or that fancy, but we have discovered that, for example, in a woman who have breast cancer, women who have a partner tend to survive longer than women who don't. So this is one of the insights that we get from it. So we got this one. We can get so much more. You can think about all the things that we could learn, all the patterns that we could find thanks to AI. And we could essentially, help people survive longer thanks to these systems. So I find that really, really exciting for the future. Now, we've been saying very often throughout this call that AI is, exciting and all of that. I mean, obviously, we work in this industry, so we're not going to tell you, oh, no. But obviously, there are some oh, no's. So while I think we should be excited about all the good stuff it can do, we should also be aware of some of the dangers. And one that I find quite interesting is I was watching this TED Talk the other day that was talking about a hypothetical AI that could essentially tell you whether you were going to get married to your partner or split up based on a bunch of data that you had to give, age and education and just a lot of different data about yourself. So we decipher patterns and tell you with a 90% accuracy whether you were going to get married or split up. And the problem of that is, well, what if the AI tells you that you're going to split up? Then you might think, oh, well, then what is even the point? Or you might get discouraged, or you might simply end up, fulfilling the prophecy made by AI, even though it was just a prediction that was up in the air. So that is called, self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. And if we think about this hypothetical AI that predicts whether a couple is going to break up or stay together, well, the harm done is there. But we can also think about real systems that we already use today, for example, in politics. If you have an AI system, and there are plenty of them, who try to predict who is going to win an election, if the AI system predicts, well, Donald Trump is going to win with a 90% accuracy, then a lot of people might think, well, then what is the point of going to vote, because it's going to win anyway, so I'm not even going to bother voting for Kamala Harris. That is very much on point for today. So in this kind of context, I think AI can be dangerous to an extent, and I think that we should try to speed up laws and stuff. Think about rules of applying AI ethically. Are there some domains in which we don't want to use AI because it can cause potential harm or potential influence? That is what we call the algorithmic feedback loop, essentially, when the prediction of an AI influences your behavior in a way that actually justifies and reinforces the prediction of the AI. So that is one of the things that I find to be on the scarier side. But we don't only have to talk about scary stuff. We can also talk about, long-term implications and AI and the workplace. So we have a few more minutes maybe. So how about, if you are fine with that, we can ask the audience, how do you see AI changing the workplace in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see, because usually people say AI is going to take our jobs, but I do think it's going to be a great tool to free up routine tasks and allow for humans, individuals, to just do more creative, strategic, complex work. Instead of spending your time sending out scheduled emails, you can use automation. But yeah, let's see what other people have to say.
Okay, I will also have a look at the chat and reply to the questions there. So we have a question in the chat about, sentiment analysis. If there are any tools available, if they comply with data security, confidentiality, and such. So there are actually a lot of tools that would perform things like sentiment analysis automatically for you. You don't even need to know how to code or anything. One of them is an Excel add-in that is called Meaning Cloud. You just you just select your text, you click on a button, and it tells you whether it's negative or positive. You can do that with hundreds of them. Whether they comply with data security, confidentiality. I mean, all of these add-in software tools will have some sort of policies about the way they process your data. It's all about reading through that and checking if it is compatible with whichever rules your company has. So I would say that is really software specific. I don't know what would be, if Zoe, you have anything else to add on that, or
Yeah, I was just going to say Meaning Cloud is definitely one that you can use. I think there's a few more. WordStat is another like content analysis tool as well. And again, it does, like Celine's pretty much said, it does depend on your company. But yeah, it's nice seeing the different answers. I think someone wrote about lawyers and changing the workplace, which I thought was quite interesting because one of my friends is a paralegal and she is very much against AI, and she was very annoyed that I was an advocate for it because she just said she literally said it was taking her job. But I just thought it's removing her routine tasks. She said routine tasks is what makes her job, but yeah, I think AI is removing all the tasks that are just going to waste your time. Like someone said, free up time, which is true.
Yeah, I think that if we think about the next 5 to 10 years, it's relatively safe to assume that AI will take more and more space. If we look throughout, the past, any new technology has been adopted and used more and more. There are very few, if not no examples of a technology that could have been revolutionary, but we just decided not to use it. So we can safely assume that, like we did in the past, there is a new technology there, we will use it more and more. And I think that it will, obviously change the workplace a lot. I think that, the job industry will be changed in the sense that certain jobs might, not necessarily disappear, but maybe be, have less availabilities because we need them slightly less. But I think it's also going to create many new jobs as well. And I saw some people writing things about, the people who know how to use the AI or who know about data will be the winners. I tend to agree with that to some extent. I think that the gap between the AI people or the data people and the non-data people will sort of, become smaller and smaller, and that we will need people to understand AI and be able to work with it. If we think about it and we take a different historical example, like the Industrial Revolution, or any of these times when we had sudden changes in the way we work, it did change the job market completely. Some jobs were indeed no longer needed, but it tend to create more jobs than it suppresses jobs. So that is sort of the hope for the future, of course. And when machines started being used much more often after the Industrial Revolution, well, everyone had to learn to start working with the machine, right? And today, everyone or almost everyone knows how to work with a computer, right? So, maybe in 10, 20 years or however long, everyone will be able to some extent to use the AI and understand how it works. That is one of the things that I think could possibly happen. But let's see, what else do we had? Routine work will be removed. The items will be able to talk to each other's. Further integrated more than 90 autonomous event-based processes. Absolutely. Accountancy, yes. Manuals and AI will be replaced by asking questions. Yeah, absolutely. I think AI conversational systems will essentially be able to just answers to the questions you have. Let's see. I think we only have a few minutes left, so how about we swiftly move on to our conclusions? So,
yeah. Is there any questions about anything we've covered today, anything AI related? We are happy to answer. But whilst you are typing away, if you do have any questions, here are just some QR links to help you stay updated. So we have some upcoming events. There's a QR code on the slide just to show you what's coming up. I know we have another Project Womexan event on the 20th of November in London, which is to do with embracing data, or we'll have a panel of guests. We also have a LinkedIn group that I was referring to, which is a Project Remexen group where you can just share anything to do with tech, share anything to do with AI, what you're interested in, what you'd like to see from the community. Introduce yourself, please utilize it. I think it will be good. And I believe Erin's going to send out a newsletter after the call, just to keep you updated with what we have coming. And feel free to share your story at one of our events. We do have hackathons. I think the next one's in March. So if you're free to come along to that, it's a great day where you get to work on building something over 2 days. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'd recommend emailing us, but I think we do have some questions in the chat. We also offer, I think I mentioned earlier, level 3, level 4, and level 7 apprenticeships also. Let's.
And so, yes, to reply to some of the questions in the chat, well, one of the things that we can definitely recommend is we actually give apprenticeship, level 4, level 7, or level 3, depending on what is your background, your level of knowledge. So if you'd like to hear more about it, you can let us know, and we will happily, let you know what it is about. You don't need to pay for it; it's entirely government funded. So that could be something interesting if you want to learn more, but don't necessarily have a technical background. And also, if you have something specific that you'd like to learn about, you can always, email us, and we can send you resources on that specific topic. Yeah.
But thank you. I think Erin's also put in the events link if it wasn't working, so thanks for that. But thank you everyone for joining. We have finished right on time, which is great. Oh, the link doesn't work either. Oh no.
Let's see.
I believe Erin will probably send this out in the newsletter. I think she's going to send everyone kind of what we've covered. But yeah, so I'm sure she's getting on that right now.
Yeah, you will hear back from Erin with the links and the slides and the link to the recording as well after this call. So I think it's 1:30, so we should probably let you all go. But thank you so much for your participation. Thank you for coming. It was really interesting to have this chat with you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.